moments for it to pick up on Facebook, and then we'll start. So anyway, so we're live. So good afternoon, Facebook world and YouTube world. This is myself, Keith Poole, and I am honoured this afternoon to have Bishop Melvyn Brooks from New Jerusalem Apostolic Church in Birmingham with us this afternoon. And I interviewed him last year. For those who could remember, we had a good half an hour, 45 minutes discussion on this platform. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity again to allow Bishop to share with us some of his thoughts again surrounding the subject of leadership. So, Bishop, good afternoon to you.
Well, Dr. Keith, good afternoon to you, sir. How are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you doing? How is your family?
We're well. My family is well. My wife and children, who are adults now, doing very well with their own families. Praise God.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. How are you doing? How is your health? I see you walking every day.
Yeah. Well, my health, as far as I know, is good.
Excellent.
I'm 65 years of age now, so, obviously the body is not as strong as it might have been 10 years ago, but I feel good.
Excellent. That's good news. I see you walking every day. Is that something that you've been trying to do through lockdown?
Yeah. After lockdown last March, I decided to go walking and pray in the mornings, release a thought on Facebook, just to encourage one person or two, and just to be visible in the community, really, and just to let folk know there's hope. Yeah. Because the lockdown, if you stay in your house all day doing nothing else, you could become very much aggressive or becomes, as it were, stagnant or discouraged, depressed. So I want to move out in the atmosphere and be relevant to the community I'm living in, plus the city at large. Because sometimes you can stay one place too long, become overweight.
Yeah, definitely.
Eat too much, not fit. So yeah.
It's amazing how it takes a lot of hard work to develop muscle, and yet you can lose your muscle and your fitness very quickly. It's that always amazes me. It's a long road to getting fit and healthy, and a short road to getting unhealthy and unfit.
Well, success, Dr. Keith, takes a good time, preparation, hard work, study, but it can be lost in a second.
Yeah.
Same principle,
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Anyway, let's jump into the discussion. What I wanted to discuss, everybody who's watching, I see there's a few people joined us already. I wanted to look at the subject of leadership, and especially the subject of character as a leader. In fact, the last few months now, whenever I seem to be going anywhere to teach or trade or speak, the subject of character seems to come up with leaders. So I just thought it'd be great to learn from yourself, listen to what your thoughts are on the subject. You're a man who has an enormous wealth of experience, leading a church and ministries and things all around the world. So, if you don't mind, can I just throw a question at you to begin with, and just ask you, as a Christian leader, Bishop, why do you think character is so important?
Because Jesus Christ himself declared it so. Yeah. If you look at the Beatitude, for example, it is the attitude. It is the attitude of the believers. Yeah. It's the lifestyles, the behaviors. The Beatitude is so imperative to understand. And if we don't live according to the Beatitude, we'll never be at a place of righteousness. Mm-hmm. Therefore, we have to present ourselves as God intended as his called out leaders. Remember, in Jeremiah 3:15, we are told, God said, I'll give you pastors after my own heart. So therefore, a leader must be called, commissioned by God. And if he or she is called, if you call yourself, there are certain traits you'll see in those who are self-appointed. They are not willing to submit to anyone else. They submit to themselves. Okay. When, and they live in their own corner, their own teaching, their own culture, belief system, and they don't have a accountability. Those who really call and serve God's people, want to be accountable, want to be responsible, and want to make sure that they present their leader, Jesus Christ, the best way possible through his words and what he expects of us. As Paul told us in 1 Timothy 3, what the qualities are for a leader. This is all in Titus 2. It's in the scriptures. And Paul, in Titus 2:15, it talks about 5, it says that there be order in the church. So everywhere we turn the Bible, or the New Testament, leaders must be of sound character. When you're appointed by self, then you are the one who resists the authorities over you. You're a self-appointed leader. You resist existing spiritual leadership. You criticize and question leadership. But when you're called of God, you're submitted. You're submissive to God and your leadership around you.
So what, I ask you with the greatest of respect here, to be open and transparent with the viewers, with the people who are watching. What character traits do you consider the most important? Oh.
Well, the first thing for me is honesty, integrity, humility, faithfulness, consistency, being intentional and purposeful. All these are critical elements for any good leader.
So what character traits would you consider in your life as being one of the most important strengths of your ministry at New Jerusalem and the Jabola ministry? What personally?
For me, honesty, transparency, faithfulness.
Okay.
And consistency for me.
Why those?
Because if I accomplish those in the right way, I'm pleasing God. And that's crucial to me.
Yeah, okay.
Because faithfulness is a cornerstone of character. 2:22 says, the things you have learned of us, commit thou to faithful men who shall be able to teach others. So faithfulness is a cornerstone of character.
Yeah. So you say honesty, faithfulness,
transparency, loyalty, all those stuff as well. Yeah.
Now I know that you're a well-known man across various cultures, across the UK, which I think is absolutely wonderful. That with a large respect, you don't know many boundaries in the sense that you minister across cultures, across colours, across ages. You minister to whoever, which is a phenomenal example to many people, I think, in Birmingham. Now, from your observation, when you've been doing what you do, what has been the biggest character flaw that you've observed in other leaders that really needs to be looked at and addressed?
In some places, it is a lack of humility.
Yeah.
In some places, manipulation. In some places, it's where you see leaders treat people as though they're secondary. It's where you see that self is a priority over the people or the things of God. And in other places, what I see is where the leadership appears not to concern too much about the congregation, more about themselves. And they're the important ones.
So what would be your advice to those people?
My advice would be, number one, we are called to lead, but we're leaders who are servants. We're servant leaders first. Jesus said, I have not come to be served, I come to serve. And for our calling as ministers, we ought to recognize our teacher. Jesus Christ is the teacher. And how he shared his life, how he lived his life, how he moved with people and cared for people, even in the wrongs, how he approached them and dealt with them, is remarkable. And we're to learn from his pattern so as to become more like him than ourselves.
So what would you do with those leaders? That sounds a funny question. What would you do with them? But if you came in contact with these leaders that you've seen these flaws, how would you deal with them? Would you speak to them? Would you just pray for them, or would you offer to help them? What would you do? How would you? Because sometimes we can't just let people or let leaders continue like that.
No, I do both. I mean, if I came to your place of ministry, for example, If I saw something out of order, I wouldn't speak in public, but I said later on, if we're together, Dr. Keith, I noticed this happened. Maybe watch carefully. Maybe you want to consider this option instead. This method may give you best results. Or I may say, I can see what you're trying to do, but maybe if you go this way, because you're doing the right thing the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's in order to approach and respect people to make sure that they can take from you what you're sharing. So I try to talk to people in that way.
Do you find that people are willing to receive your input, or do you find sometimes that can be a little bit bit sketchy with people? Some are willing, some aren't.
Well, some do take, and I recall I went to a particular meeting. This was a pastor, for example, appreciation service for the pastor appreciation service. I got this was a town about 110 miles away from here. Yeah. When I got there, remember, this was called the pastoral appreciation service. And when I got there, he was leading the service. So they asked me to speak. When I got up, I turned to the bishop behind me and the overseer behind me. I said, "Sir, may I make a concerning comment?" They didn't ask what it was. I said, "Yes, go ahead." I said, "Look," I said, "I'm disappointed to see I've come to the pastoral appreciation service, and he is leading the service in his own church for him. You should recognize yourself in advance to ensure he sat down with his wife, or whoever it may be, and be encouraged, not leading the service." And I dealt with that because I was allowed to. But otherwise, I spoke to Bishop directly in different ways. Sometimes something have to be addressed in a way one doesn't feel condemned or feel a judge, but can see the sense in it. So I'll try to use wisdom in what I do, because my job is not to kill or destroy, but to bring some harmony, some peace, some hope, and some correction in a way it can be received, hopefully.
Do you find that as you've got older, people have been more willing to listen to you? Or
well,
always.
I would say so, but I've got this. People, folks say to me, for a young man, you have a whole head.
Okay.
Because I can see things that need to be addressed in a way, and I know how to do it. So for that reason, all the folks call me now. All the folks in me in leadership call me for help, talk to me, ask my advice, my counsel. Because when I go with them, or I present myself, or I teach a lesson, or I speak, they can see the wisdom that I shared, so as to bring some order, some structure, some system in the church that helps them.
Yeah.
So for that reason, they call me frequently to come in and speak, to leadership, or to preach, or to teach, because they benefit from what I have to say.
Has it always been that way? Even when you were younger?
No, I was more radical when I was younger. I wasn't so wide. My response was,
very.
But I've learned to calm myself down, and say, you make it so. And I'm going for the kill. I'm going with hope and love.
So you've seen, you've seen those things that needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
But you went in quite sharply, strongly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd say you've mellowed as you've got older.
My presentation is mellowed but direct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would Yvonne agree?
I think she would. Yeah. Would.
No, that's good. So as you've got older, you say that your character has grown, your character developed. You've learned how to communicate more effectively.
Yes.
So you've chosen your words more wisely.
Yes.
And because of that, that's been received by other people.
Yes, I realize you can be telling the truth again. I said earlier, in the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah, because Jesus said about speaking. I think it was the Apostle Paul wrote about speaking the truth in love.
In love, exactly. Yes.
So how would you do? Because sometimes we know the truth can be quite direct, and it can hurt sometimes.
Yeah.
So when you know that the subject is a very sensitive subject, and you know that if you make some comments about a certain issue, quite easily a person can get defensive. How would you deal with that type of individual? Because it's quite easy to offend them, even if you are really nice and loving.
Yeah, but sometimes I don't speak in the church at all. I'll wait to leave or call them back later and say, when I was there last week, I saw this. What is the explanation for that? Because this, da 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 da. And so I find ways now, I find different ways. I can't learn people's characteristics, mentality. So I'm making sure I'm helping help and support. Or sometimes, as I say a note on, I say a note in a subject.
So what do you do? So what do you have you ever been in a position where, like you said with that bishop and the overseer, you asked if you could share a couple of your comments. Have you been in a place where people have agreed for you to do that? You've shared what you've shared in a respectful, loving way, and it's backfired. You know, you've been there, and the people haven't liked it or received it, and you know how have you dealt with that?
I think I spoke to one place I've been to, and I shared something, and it was about a person who was in the restroom, and they sat in a particular way that you could see the problem in leadership, big problem. And I felt led to say, you know, we have to find a way to grow together and identify our issues and address it rather than come publicly and present ourselves obviously to the world. We're not in order. And if one person wasn't pleased with that. But I said, well, you know, I was led to do that. I was asked to share my heart. I wasn't condemning nobody. And I share it. I said, you know, you're very obviously hungry and bitter. You're on the stage facing congregation, and guess who's there? So I didn't call it a name. I shared the principle, how to deal with the issue, nothing else for God, publicly displaying your mannerism. And the way it was the utter order. And the pastor and the church agreed with me, but the person who was obvious one was not people, but understood that.
Okay. So if you've grown in that ability, and I think some people most definitely grow in that ability to speak truth to people so it can be received. I think some people, not everybody can do that very well. I think some people find it very difficult at whatever age they are. But how have you learned to do that? Because, you know, you don't just wake up one morning and all of a sudden, you know, Bishop Melvyn Brooks has suddenly changed and grown. What's been your secret to learning and growing then?
I do a lot of study. I do a lot of study and research. I study a lot. I research a lot. I travel a lot. I mean, I traveled to Africa many times. Across Africa, I've been the last 16 years, many times. America, I've been 25 states over there. You know, I've been Europe. I've been around church. I've been around people, different culture.
Yes.
So I've learned to travel. I've learned through study. I've learned through experience. And I've learned through following Jesus' example. And I learned also by mistakes you make from time to time.
Dare I ask you to share one of your big mistakes you've made? Would you be willing to do that? Only from not from trying to shame you or anything like that, but for me personally, I love listening to stories from people that I can learn from. That's, for me, that's one of the highlights of talking to people like yourself, because you've been where I've not been yet, and I'm still growing, and I want to learn from people who've been there, done it, you could say. And I'm thinking, tell me the stories of what's happened to you, so that I can learn from you.
Let me give you an example. This was 1994. I remember specifically, I was preaching at a conference. Now, you know, many years ago, you have in the church world, you have the Pentecostal, the Charismatic, the Apostolics, the Baptists, the Methodists, and all these groups. And it was a common thing to preach who is saved and who wasn't saved. Some say this group isn't saved, that one isn't saved, and it goes on. Or what to wear, and it goes on. So this convention, I was really preaching, and the truth is, it was going very well. But I remember there's a group there who did not believe what we believe, and I preached about that. And the people who were not of the same group as us were very offended by that. And although the folk got saved, but I recognized then my responsibility is not to preach on doctrine and culture in a revival meeting. It's to preach Christ and Him crucified. let the love of Christ flow through the word, and those who are there who need to be saved, to be convicted, are pricked in their heart and come. So from that day, I started recognizing my approach must change. I must preach the gospel, not doctrine about my belief and your belief, and you ain't right and I'm right kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that was learned behavior. That was learned behavior, though.
So by obviously some people there when you were speaking were upset by what you were saying. Mm-hmm. In future, then, when you've been in similar settings and similar situations, would you now 100% steer clear from those type of messages, or would you still do that, but in a more? Because you said as you've grown older, you've mellowed. So would you now say, well, I will do that, but because I've grown, I can do it in a better way?
Yes. So now I can preach the same message today, and those who is concerning, identify but don't feel condemned, because the Bible is speaking and answering my question, revealing the truth of what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that group. No, I'm saying based on the scripture. The Bible declares, and so I do it now. And so that's my belief system. But one thing to say, well, I know that group over there is not going anywhere. And that one over there is not going anywhere, because you have not got what we got. But that's not us preaching.
Yeah.
So I dropped that style and preach the gospel, the truth. Whatever I'm preaching is the Bible. It impact everyone in the group, everybody in the group.
So really what you're saying is that you've made that decision to be, do I use the word, to be more inclusive with people. So instead of trying to make a point, which brings division, you've tried to be more inclusive with everybody, to gather everybody together. Would you say that is the case?
Yeah, because I believe the scripture should speak for itself. The Bible should speak for itself. Now, there are various interpretations of certain scriptures, certain verses. That's a reality. Certain belief system there. So my job is not to condemn. Isaiah 1:18, God says, come now, let us reason together. So if there are issues amongst the group, let's talk together and share our beliefs and see how far we are from each other. But don't condemn each other. That's not our job.
So obviously I know Birmingham. I worked in Birmingham for many years, and I visited your church and churches around. There's lots of churches in Birmingham, isn't there? Lots of different types, different styles. That how do you embrace all those people? Because I know culture across the UK and across the world is fairly divisive. There's a lot of diversity, but in that diversity with a lot of people, they don't want to get on with each other. So in terms of you guys and yourself in Birmingham, which can be a hotbed of many cultures and many colours and creeds and nations represented, what do you and your church do to reach out outside of the borders of the building of the church? To cross the barrier, because there's lots of barriers in Birmingham, with misunderstanding with people. So what do you do there, to be, that inclusive church, to reach people? What do you do?
New Jay, we share fellowship with people of the Christian faith. We share fellowship with them. We preach for them, they preach for us. Because the mistake we made years ago was trying to preach. If I came to, let's say you're a pastor in the church, and I came to you come to preach. Well, I mustn't come and tell your people off. That's not my job. My job, I was called what I believe. I told pastors, don't call me just to preach. Call me because I have a gift you need.
That's good.
Call me because of the gift I carry to help you where you're at in the ministry, not just to preach a service. So when I come, my job is to preach a message based on the theme you have for your church or a direction it gave me. But usually speaking, I say to people, if you call me, tell me your theme for the church. That's what I need, the theme. Nothing else. The theme of the church, if you've got one, if you've got none, fine. I pray and see what I bring to the table. But if you have a theme in the church for the year, I'm preaching on that. I come to enhance that theme. unless God changed along the way in my preaching or preparation, but it should bring back to the theme.
Yeah.
So I encourage people, don't invite me because you want me to come preach a fancy message. No. If I've got something in need, that's what you call me.
No, I like that, actually. I've got to say, I like that, what you've said. Yeah, don't come in to preach Culver because you've got a need for my gifting. Because
Right.
I think, I really do like that. I'll write that down. I do like that. Because I think sometimes we fall into the trap of just getting someone to fill in for,
Right.
because you've got a certain Sunday that's vacant. So let's just, no disrespect to you or anybody, they get someone to fill in for them. You hear that many times around in the church world. But we got to get away from that, and just realize that God has gifted people to do a particular job and function and role within the body of Christ. So
Right.
what you carry in terms of your gifting and in terms of your anointing, that's what we want. So then we invite you on that basis because we want you
Right.
to be. And I think if we did that,
Yeah.
we would be more open to receive from people. Because
Yeah, because
instead of Bishop Melvyn turning up, it's the anointed
right.
man called Bishop
Right.
Melvyn Brooks. So we're listening
Exactly.
to the gift.
Right.
Would you agree?
I agree entirely. I agree entirely. I agree entirely with that. But see, if you look at the world today, you got these wonderful preachers, and their friends come. I come to you, you come to me. I come to you, I come to you. And really, all they're doing is sharing money between each other most of the times. And there are people not so large when I bring a crowd, but what they brought or bring to the table is transforming for your people.
Yeah. Do you think? How would you deal with the? I hold you in very high esteem, and I say that to everyone listening, and I say that respectfully because I really do. And what you've done and what you've achieved is just fantastic, and thank God for you and for your wife Yvonne and for your family. But how do you deal with somebody then? And I'm just trying to draw on your experience here. How do you deal with someone if you went to a church where you were invited to speak and the pastor didn't know that you were turning up because you were invited by one of his leadership team because they asked you to? And when you got up there to speak, the pastor welcomed you, but he was quite disrespectful. What would you do in a situation like that? Would you just walk out? Would you carry on? Would you address that? Because I know
I
of a
wouldn't.
situation where that happened recently. That's why I asked the question.
No, I wouldn't go. Anyone, if the pastor doesn't invite me, and a leader in church asked me to come, I said, "Does the pastor know you asked me? Let him send a letter to me and confirm my invitation, please." If in my assembly got some young people preaching out, and they asked me, said, "Before you go anywhere, let me know if the young person is asking you has your pastor permission to invite you in the first place before I let you go." That's my philosophy and policy.
And I like that.
I need to know if the pastor needs me to come first and foremost.
And if you didn't have that letter or email or something from him, then you wouldn't go.
I would call to ask a question just in case.
Yeah.
If there's an administration error, I said, "Listen, so-and-so asked me to come to preach your church. Is that true? If not, it's no problem, sir. God bless you. Take care. Bye. I'm good."
Okay. I suppose you're not that, as you get older. When you're younger, you're really zealous and really keen to be invited. As you get older, it's like yes, you do want to go and preach, teach, but if there's no invitation, you're not going to fall over because of it, are you?
No. And also, I just think it's good practice as the minister to go anywhere, make sure you're properly invited. All right, I went to a church one time in Nottingham to preach. The pastor invited me to preach. I got there from Friday, Saturday evening. I rest up, prepare a message to preach Sunday, got to church. And after the service, his overseer comes and announces with another preacher. And this pastor would seem to be afraid of his overseer. So I lean across and says, do you mind if I let ever see a priest today? He's here. I said, no problem at all. It's your church. I'm fine. And I sat on the stage, and the preacher, they came and what we're going to do. I'm fine. I was fine. I had no issue with it at all. I'm very much aware of protocol, order, structure, and system. So although he invited me, if the big man comes and wants me, I'm fine. I ain't gonna fight. No, I don't do that stuff. No. I'm not. And this service was a mess. It was a mess. It brought another preacher in, and it tore the church up. But there you go. But I was fine.
Have you always followed that same procedure, if I can use that phrase?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I have.
you've always.
Yeah. No, I never go anywhere to preach unless I know the pastor confirm, authorize my invitation.
Okay, no, that's good. No, that's it's an excellent thing to do. Otherwise, like you say, you you're opening the door for all sorts of potential trouble there.
Yeah.
And now that's fantastic. So, just we'll bring this to an end or conclusion soon. But how would you deal with a leader, a church leader, church pastor, who has been well, no, let me scale it back a little bit. The church pastor left. Okay, he resigned, and he was moving on to new pastures. And one of the leaders, one of the elders, just decided one day, I'm the pastor now. No discussion, no approval, no prayer necessary, no agreement with the other leaders. But the other leaders are not strong characters. They're more supportive in their gifting. So this particular leader just says, I'm in charge, and that's it. No one challenges him. What would you do with somebody like that? No, that probably wouldn't happen in your church, nor mine. But how would you deal with that? Would you, if you heard of that situation and you knew the church, would you go there and speak to him, or how would you deal with it?
Well, what I would do, I wouldn't go as a one-man band. I'd call other colleagues who knew the church as well, and arrange to go see him at the church. Look, brother, if you're the call person, that's fine, but this is not the way. You're going to destroy this assembly. And the previous leader worked so hard to build this up, and God's take the time, wait, allow time. Let's pray about this thing. Because if you take by force, you are a self-appointed leader, and you're going to fail. You need to wait to appoint you properly.
Would you definitely go in with other leaders, or would you hear about it but not actually do anything? Because not every situation is for us to go into and sort of confront. Because we hear all sorts of things.
But it depends. What would you do? It depends on the rapport you have with a church.
Okay.
There are many churches that are not part of my group, but I'm very tight with. If that happens, I would, because of my role with them over the years, that gives me some access to the church to walk and say, look, let's talk this through to help you. If you are going to be the pastor, do it the right way. And we can help you do that. But the way you're going is the wrong way. Now, you can refuse to listen, of course, but we couldn't pretend if we knew the church, worked with the church before, have a close rapport with them, not to show some interest in a loving way, not to kill, but to encourage a better approach. Let system flow through. Let's discuss this thing and make sure if you are to be the chosen person, you get a job the right way. Because you could lose everybody and the building.
Yeah. Oh no, that to be fair, if when it comes to being self-appointed in that manner, they are opening themselves and the church up to all manner of issues really going forward. So that's not. Just as we wrap this up here, Bishop, what would be your closing thoughts to the young people? Because there's a lot of youngsters. I'm dealing with a lot of young people at the moment, and encouraging them and training them or teaching them. What would be the young man, the young woman who is full of enthusiasm and zeal, doesn't know a lot in terms of experience. Their experience is limited, but they've got a lot of passion, a lot of zeal for the things of God. but obviously their character isn't as developed as it could be as they get older, you know, because they're still young. You know, they may be late teenagers or early 20s. What would be your encouragement to people like that? You know, from
Well,
because you've been there, you've done it.
yeah.
Yeah, what would be your encouragement to them?
Well, first and foremost, we as leaders now must recognize the season and time that we're in are different from our day. Number one, there are more information at their fingertip, but also we should be intentional in investing in them, in training and development. As we're speaking now, I'm just establishing in New Jay a training program for young people coming, so young leaders coming up, young people, all the training, summer leaders. Now, one book I'll be utilizing is the book called Searching for Timothy. A very good book. I've also done the John Maxwell study many years ago, over 3 years. Got
Yeah,
all of those books still, The Million Man, The Million Leader,
the
done that years ago, got
leaders'
those books to
mandates.
use.
Yeah,
Right. So I'm going to use all those to help equip our young people to foundationalize them in Christ, in their character, in their behavior, in
yeah,
their choices, in their living, and their choice of relationships, and studying at university to behave there. I'm going to invest time, real time, praying with them and teaching them also by our example, sharing what we've been through, how we coped back then. I know it's different times now. We are doing that now.
yeah. So
And they, and they are the today people really coming close behind us to take over from us.
yeah, to take up the baton, as it were, and yeah, to run ahead. Yeah, Bishop, I really do appreciate you as a man, as a man of God, as a person. I really do. Like I said, I watch your videos and your posts virtually every day. I may have missed a handful, but I listen to them all, and you know, certainly they are encouraging and thought provoking at times. And you know, I thank you for doing that. You know, you said you did them for the, you know, for anybody who's listening. Well, there's certainly one here because I do. And thank you for taking the time to do that. And you know, as I'm sure many people have said to you already, and I'll repeat, you know, I appreciate your longevity as a leader. You know, your heart as a man for people. You know, I see you as a, you know, you've got a massive heart for people, and you know, I admire that. You know, you just want to see other people succeed, and you just want to see other people do well. You know, to grow and to develop. So you know, again, I will join the many people who have just expressed their thanks to you. But you know, thank you for stayed faithful over the years. You know, as you've got older, stayed faithful, stayed true to what you believe. You know, and leading your family so well and leading the church so well. So, Bishop, thank you for your time this Friday afternoon. I appreciate you very much, though, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you in person soon. Bishop, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time. Is there
Thank you, Fit.
anything, just as you finish the last 30 seconds, is there anything you want to say before we close? Your closing remarks, let it be.
Stay faithful, stay committed, stay passionate for God, and remember only what we do for Christ will last and count in the end. Therefore, make every moment count for God. God bless you.
Bishop, thank you so much. Everybody, this will be left on Facebook for you to watch as many times as you want to. Share it with your friends. It'll be on YouTube, my YouTube channel there, just Reverend Keith Poole. It'll be on YouTube for you to watch as well. So I hope something that Bishop Brooks has shared this afternoon is going to help you and encourage you and maybe just challenge your thinking in how you deal with people. So thank you, sir. And thank you, everybody who's given the time to watch. And I will see you all soon. God bless you all.